from the Center for Immigration Studies, giving us a little bit of time today to talk about this court ruling on sanctuary cities. Mark, how are you?
I'm doing very well. How about you?
I'm doing great, thank you. You sit back and you just marvel sometimes at how far the left will go to protect their law breaking in these sanctuary cities, but they've done it again.
Yeah, although the ruling actually isn't quite as broad as they want you to believe. I mean, the way it's been advertised is that Trump now can't do anything about sanctuary cities, and the judge has stopped him. When he actually, and that's, of course, what the judge kind of wanted people to think, and the Democrats want to think, and apparently the president even initially thought that. But when you read the ruling, it turns out the only actual defunding thing that they're working on in the administration is shutting off some Justice Department funding programs. And the judge says, well, that's obviously legal because those strings were attached to the money to begin with. He's just talking about, well, if they try to do anything else, then that wouldn't be allowed. In other words, it's a political statement by a politician pretending to be a judge. A lawsuit never should have even been accepted because the two counties in California, San Francisco and Santa Clara, which is where Silicon Valley is, haven't had any money cut off. There's no injury, so there's no legal basis for their even being allowed to bring suit. But the judge accepted it anyway, and what he said was, well, if the administration, look what they're saying. They're saying nasty, bad things, and I'm saying they can't do any of those nasty, bad things, none of which exist in reality. It's a political maneuver that is designed to make people think Trump has been stymied, when in fact, Attorney General Sessions is going to be shutting off that law enforcement money anyway, and the judge said that's obviously legal.
Yeah, this was the soundbite that the judge seemed to be referring to on the president as the evidence he needed that the president did this with ill intent.
I don't want to defund anybody. I want to give them the money they need to properly operate as a city or a state. If they're going to have sanctuary cities, we may have to do that. Certainly that would be a weapon.
I'm sure the weapon comment was probably a trigger for that Obama appointee.
Yeah, but I mean, so what? I mean, that's no basis. It has nothing to do with law. The question is, if the administration were to say, okay, we're not going to give you Department of Education grant money because you're a sanctuary city, that probably would be a basis for a lawsuit, because based on earlier jurisprudence from over the years, that's unrelated to the thing that they're trying to stop, and so wouldn't be allowed. Okay, well, maybe if they do that, then you sue. But you can't sue in the real world outside San Francisco based on just something the president said that's not that has no effect. There's no policy. I mean, it really is astonishing that this lawsuit ever even happened.
Yeah. I guess I'm not surprised. We had a caller earlier, and I haven't been able to confirm this, but I made reference to the fact that I remember the government under the Carter administration threatening to withhold highway funds if all the states didn't lower their speed limit to 55.
Right.
I don't know if there were any lawsuits about that or not. We had a caller earlier who claimed that one state successfully sued over the federal government trying to withhold federal highway funds because they wouldn't lower their drinking age or raise their drinking age. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was more recent, actually, was the drinking age thing. I don't know about what the lawsuits were there, but that's what they did again, was highway funds. But at least, they were saying, look, it's drunk driving, it's highways. In other words, there's a connection. And I think a lot of states kind of went along just because they didn't want to be seen as defending drunk driving or something like that. But the point is, that's a whole body of law about what's connected, knows what is related. Is this money related to the thing that the federal government is complaining about? But the Justice Department funding clearly is. The money on the website, it says, and has always said, that if you take this money, you have to comply with this provision of the law, immigration law, that says you can't interfere or stop your cops from talking to federal immigration officers. And Obama's own Justice Department last year released a report saying, well, these jurisdictions seem to be violating the law and probably shouldn't be getting this money. They just never acted on it.
Right.
So, this is a lot more hype than it is substance. And I think a lot of people are going to be surprised when the Attorney General, whenever this is, a few weeks or a month or whatever from now, cuts off this money, these grant monies, and he has the power to try to get reimbursed for money that they were given before, earlier years when they were breaking the law even then. So a lot of people are going to be surprised that he's able to do that because they're going to say, hey, I thought the judge stopped that, when the ruling itself specifically says that's permitted.
Mark Krikorian is my guest from the Center for Immigration Studies. Earlier today, the Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kelly came out and spoke, and he talked about the fact that because of sanctuary city policies, there were parents who can't hug their kids anymore and husbands who can't hug their wives anymore. And I thought he made a good point. What I think these sanctuary cities defenders are trying to do, like Gil Garcetti out in L.A. and some of the others, is muddy the water a little bit. They try to claim that they're only doing this to protect their law-abiding citizens who might happen to be here illegally. But you and I both know, and you've certainly highlighted it enough, I'd like you to sort of highlight it for my audience, what the truth is about that, because they have been turning people loose who shouldn't be on the streets.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's all kinds of people they've been letting go. In other words, and the important thing here is that immigration asked for them to be turned over, and they defied them and said no. That's what a sanctuary city is. Sanctuary city isn't necessarily one that accidentally lets somebody go, or maybe even they know he's illegal, but nobody asked for him, and ICE doesn't want him, and they let him go. It's when ICE gets the fingerprints, because all fingerprints now go to ICE as well as FBI, and they say, hey, we've got paper on this guy. He needs to go. They ask the city, hey, hold on to this guy for up to 2 days after you're done with him, and we'll come and get him. Congress allows that. The law specifically allows 48 hours. And then they say, no, we're just going to let him go. And when those people go on to commit other crimes, as most of them do, those crimes are at least partly the responsibility of those sanctuary cities that let those people go.
Yeah. I haven't had you as a guest since this happened, but what's your take on the H-1B reform that the president's talking about?
Well, it's preliminary. I mean, there's no actual reform yet, because what he really did was say, we need recommendations from DHS and Justice and the Labor Department on how we can fix this so that American workers don't get the shaft and they're not replaced by using these visa programs. So it's a good start. But we have to see yet in a few weeks or months what the actual regulations and changes are. I mean, I'm encouraged, but it's still just the first step. So we don't know what the specific changes are going to be.
And for people who hear H-1B and they don't really know what it is, the H-1B visas differ from the H-B-2 visas in the fact that H-B-1 visas are for skilled labor, correct?
Yeah, H-1Bs are for skilled workers. Most of them are in the tech industry. There are some others, fashion models. They're not really skilled, but they get it anyway. But mainly it's for the tech industry. And some of those people really are, best and brightest, really top-notch people, but not many of them. Mostly it's just cheap labor. Yeah. It's white-collar cheap labor, just like in the farmers want blue-collar cheap labor. It's the same idea.
Very good. Mark Krikorian, hey, I tell you what, check out Mark's website, Center for Immigration Studies. It's CIS.org, and you can check in there and read up on the very latest critical issues that they cover for us on a daily basis. Mark, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
Yeah, have a great day. Thank you. Good to get Mark on here. All right, still ahead, we're going to talk to Congressman Rodney Davis from the